photography and all kinds of stuff. My California book, eventually I'm going to make into a coffee table book, just because it is so hard to get to know this stretch, the real thing. That I living here, I have the time and the flexibility to be able to to document all this. And so here's one of mine from out in the desert. And that's phenomenal. About 75 individual frames that I had to stitch to the panorama. Took me about a week to do that because it was making Photoshop run incredibly slow.
I wonder if I got enough light on you. See, I don't.
The background I know is pretty bright.
Yeah, that's what. Look, maybe I need to just give up a little bit more of that background.
You're probably gonna need some lens flaring doing that.
Yeah, that's what I'm. It's unfortunate. Yes, sir. This is working pretty good.
Does that work okay?
Yeah, this looks actually pretty good. I got your store behind you.
Okay, for sure.
So, go ahead and give me your full name.
My name is Ian Bowen.
Okay, and Ian, tell me where you are and give me some of the history. Tell me about the sign there and you guys, the end of the, give me your story.
Sure. So we're at 66 DeKalb on Santa Monica Pier. We are the original Route 66 dedicated business in the Los Angeles area. We're located at the traditional endpoint of the road. The highway officially ended at an on-ramp just before the ocean to connect you to the coast highway. But the big finish, if you came from the middle of the country up through the 1930s, 40s, 50s, was the ocean. If you drove 2,000 miles, you'd come all the way down until you touched the ocean. And by the time you got to Lincoln Boulevard, you could see it straight ahead. So we're where people could come down from the cliffs in the city of Santa Monica and come down and touch the water's edge. We opened in 2009 and originally had to make our own signs. There wasn't a whole lot of understanding or appreciation of 66 here at that point. They actually told us the road didn't exist. And so my boss, Dan Rice, made a couple of signs to match the Begin one in Chicago at a Kinko's in July of 2009. That's when we opened. And we were in a little cart at the time. We'd move every week to different spots on the pier. And we'd get yelled at for taking away those signs. They were the only thing you could take a picture of. And so about 4 months after we opened the store in 2009 in November 11th, actually, the 83rd anniversary of Route 66's creation, Dan put up the famous End of the Trail sign based on one of our t-shirts. And since then, that has really taken on a life of its own. A lot of people know the sign without knowing our store. But the signs in our windows right here are the predecessors. And we're kind of a visitor center for the rest of the road in a place where it can be kind of hard to find the real feel of Route 66.
Tell me about the certificate of completion.
Sure. So the certificates I created in 2013. We had a lot of people who would ask us, do you have like a product that says, I did it, or been there, done that. And I never wanted to do that. In my mind, you've never done everything on 66, no matter how many times you've done it. You always have more to discover. And gradually, especially after a couple of overseas TV programs aired, we started getting a lot of people who would go to a travel agent and be given advice to go to the larger cities and, there's nothing to do in small towns, so just, go from city to city. Chicago to St. Louis in one day, and then a lot of side trips that people would use up all their trip on. And by the time they got to me, they wouldn't be able to name a single thing they saw on 66. And the flip side of that was that there were people who had discovered so much more on the road than they expected. And I realized those people are the best ambassadors for the road. When you do the trip the first time, you have a really great time in most cases, but you also know everything that you learned along the way, everything that you do differently. And there's so many misconceptions about what 66 is like today, not just talking about the local part of it, but overall. I get asked all the time, can you still drive it? If people are here, they can come and talk to us, they can ask those questions. We're happy to tell all the history and what it's like today. But if someone is in Spain, or in Australia, or in Japan, they may not know anyone to ask, and a lot of the information is in English. Those certificates are about creating new ambassadors for the road and asking people who have had the experience to stay involved and keep the road going into the future. Because gradually it will pass out of living memory, but you can still keep the culture of the road going. And to me, that's not just about retro, it's also about a homemade meal and getting to be a human being again.
Okay, hold on a second.